So now, before we go deeper into what is right versus wrong, they talked about in right versus wrong, they talked about morals and ethics. Okay. Before we go further, I want to define that piece, morals and ethics. What is a moral, or what are morals, and what are ethics? All right, so the definition of moral refers to personal beliefs or values about what is right and wrong. These are often shaped by upbringing, religion, culture, or personal experience. So let's look at that again. Let's go back to our example we had earlier where there's a human being that has not, had the proper upbringing. They don't know much about religion. They don't know much about their culture or the practices of their culture, the traditions. And then they don't have much personal experience. They don't go out much. They haven't seen much. In that example, how do you think they are finding morality? And do they ever find morality? Or do they go out here, live their lives, and do whatever they want until they find themselves either in prison or worse? Like, what do we do for that portion of our population that just didn't have the tools to identify right versus wrong, that were never taught? They may have had the opportunities, but again, if you don't know something, you don't know something. I was telling someone that a few weeks ago that sometimes we don't know what we need, and because if you don't know something, you just don't know. There's no way for you to know. If I don't proactively go out, and let's say I wanted to be a neurosurgeon, if I don't go out and get a degree and go learn the discipline to get that degree, how do I know how to be a neurosurgeon? And then on top of that, if I've never heard of a neurosurgeon, how do I even know a neurosurgeon exists? How do I find myself saying, hey, one day, hey man, I want to be a neurosurgeon, but I've never heard of it. No one's ever introduced the knowledge to me. I've never seen it anywhere. This is something that is completely in full view of my ignorance, and I just don't know anything about it. The same thing with right and wrong or with morals. If people don't know that they exist, how do we ever expect them to find their way? Okay, so key traits. Internal morals comes from within a person. Emotional, often tied to feelings of guilt, shame, or pride. So that's emotional morals. Cultural morals, shaped by family, community, or faith. I talked about how my mother, my family, my community, and my faith help shape my morality. Subjective, can differ from person to person. That is very important. The subjectivity of this conversation that we are having, or this information that we are going over, the subjectivity is beyond scale. It is, because how can we determine what is right or wrong for someone in any situation? If Now, there are universal rights. Again, most religions cover those rights. Whether it's the Ten Commandments, whether it's, different laws within, different other religions and, things like that. But most people have different beliefs, and we just can't always assume that the knowledge that we've learned should apply to everyone. So that's why this topic is so broad. And that's why we're trying to synchronize our clocks and, if not agree on the same thing as right or rights or wrong, but at least say that we saw the same information about it. And we had the opportunity to run that information through our mind and see what that information does for us. All right. So, examples of morals: telling the truth when it's hard, helping the poor because you believe it's right, Feeling that stealing is always wrong, no matter the reason. So these are morals. Telling the truth, even when it's hard. This is the number one thing that I see that is in almost an involuntary reaction that people struggle with across the board, from children to adults. Telling the truth, even when it's hard. Being truthful. Because it makes you vulnerable when you have to tell the truth, especially if it's a truth that can hurt someone or something that makes you put you at fault. No one wants to feel that, right? So people lie. Helping the poor because you believe it's right. You know, if that's what you do, that's what you do. You volunteer. You volunteer. That's a moral that you have. Not everyone shares that, but a lot of people do. Feeling that stealing is always wrong, no matter the reason, and that is real. If someone has ever stolen something from you, you know that feeling. Like, yikes! It's like it's real. Okay, so we all can relate to that. So that is the definition of moral. So now let's look at the definition of ethics. So ethics are systemic rules or principles that define what is right and wrong in a specific group or profession. Ethics are often written into codes of conduct. So most people who have jobs, their job has a code of conduct or a code of ethics, a certain way that they want you to present yourself as an employee, as you represent that organization. Key traits: external, set by a group or institution; rational, based on logic and consistency, often taught in schools or workplaces; objective in theory, intended to apply equally to everyone within a group. So ethics is more like a set of laws or rules or codes. Uh, I don't want to say best practices, but codes and different things like that that you can follow or that are set out for everyone to adhere to for a certain purpose. Okay. Examples of ethics: a journalist should never fabricate a story. That is very true. A doctor must keep patient information confidential. You violate HIPAA laws, you could get fines and all types of stuff. So yes, that is a very good ethic. I could see the appropriation for ethics in our society, as we have different positions of power that we must conduct ourselves with a certain level of morality and ethical behavior. A business must not engage in insider trading. Again, ethics. Setting that bar there. People still do it, but it exists there. And normally, if you find yourself following these things, you keep your job, you stay out of trouble, you don't create negativity or negative energy for yourself. So ethics is very important. And we know that now morals are things that are basically our values, the things, personal things that we've learned. And ethics is normally set by an external group or institution. One is, our morals are from within. Our ethics may come from an institution or group outside of us.